Welcome to the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group, bringing you interviews with the best real estate and mortgage professionals, empowering you to understand the current trends in the housing market so that you make the American dream your reality. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast. Today we have with us Michael El-Bitar, who's a realtor with West and Main Homes. Michael, welcome to the program.
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Doing really good. Hey, get us started with getting to know you. What's your background and your story, and how did you get into the real estate business?
Yeah, so I've been, in the real estate industry for 2 years as an agent, but before that, growing up, I'd helped my parents find investment properties and they used to do kind of the BRRRR method before that was really a thing, and that got me into real estate. And then I studied psychology in school, and by my senior year, I realized that I didn't want to go through with the master's and whatnot, but switched to real estate because I figured that it would still be really useful here.
It's funny you said master's, because with that degree program, pretty much you need a master's or beyond to do anything with it. But yet I think at the same time, I'll bet you find that some of the concepts in psychology really help you in your current business, because you're really learning how to work with people and how people make buying decisions and how you need to listen and serve and educate and show empathy. So talk a little bit about that background in psychology, how it helps you in bringing the best value to your real estate clients.
Yeah, you're completely right. It's studying psychology really taught me how to listen and, pay attention to the important details and really make people be heard, which is really helpful both in serving my clients, because then I can help them find exactly what they want, and on the negotiation side, because all negotiation is really communication. So I've got to use it quite a bit.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that you see that communication style coming into need? Because I'll bet you find it in initially talking to clients, discovering what they need, but then also as you move through the process. So how do some of those touch points unfold?
Yeah, going through the process, a lot of times whenever I'm working with like a first-time home buyer or someone who hasn't bought a house in a long time, it's a natural reaction to get nervous, because this is one of the biggest investments you'll make in your life. So I found it really helpful for helping keep everybody calm and making the process feel as smooth as possible for them throughout the process.
100%. And even then when you get into negotiating and what's best for each side of the equation, because when you negotiate a win-win-win, then everyone feels like that they have contributed and that no one's losing out. So I think that's a huge piece. So talk a little bit about some of your negotiation approaches, because it's really not like, haha, I won, I fit a square peg in a round hole. It's let's figure out how everyone can feel good about the transaction.
Exactly, and that's kind of the best way that I approach it, is really figuring out, for example, if I'm representing the buyer, figuring out what the seller really needs and wants to get out of the sale of this property. And then I can use that to structure the deal that my client will still get everything that they want, and the seller will be happy, because I like to focus on kind of the net number they'll walk away with, which really lets us come to an agreement that makes everybody happy, rather than it being kind of a battle against each other. We're all working towards the same goal. And then I also use, silence a lot, because that's one of the big things that you kind of learn is, as long as you let other people speak, it, can help drive the conversation forward pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, because people feel uncomfortable with that silence, want to fill in the gap, but then it just carries the conversation ahead. You even have an Instagram name, Living to Negotiate. So talk a little bit about that approach that you take to negotiations and what you deliver on your Instagram.
Yeah, so I pretty much like to share as much as I can on my Instagram there because I figure if I can give out a lot of tips and just helpful information and keep people educated on the market, then using my negotiation skills, we can help get them to their goal. I use it as kind of a way to keep everyone educated and let them know kind of where the big negotiation points are going to be. And if you're in the position that has the most leverage at the time, then it might be worth reaching out.
100%. So, talk a little bit about some of the types of clients you work with. You mentioned that you work with buyers and sellers. Do you work with investors, and what's your approach that way?
Yeah, so I work with both buyers and sellers on the residential side. And then I love to work with investors just because that's my goal in the next, 5 years is to be investing in a lot of real estate. And my approach there is a lot of buy and hold investors. And I have a lot of younger clients who are buying multifamily properties, and I like to educate them on kind of things that they should look for to see if it's a good value for the property and see if it's something that they'll be able to hold on to for, the next 20, 30 years that can set them up pretty well for the future.
You mentioned buy and hold, and that's a wonderful strategy because it brings a lot of benefits. Do you ever find that you're working with your investors on holding it for the purpose of short-term rental, or is it a mixture between that as well as people that just want to rent it for years on end?
Yeah, I have kind of a mix. We have short-term rentals have been really popular the past few years, and so there's a lot of people that go into it looking for a short-term rental, and I always like to kind of walk them through, like, yeah, short-term rental in this area, it could work because there aren't any restrictions on it, and kind of help them run somewhat of the numbers that they can get there, and obviously just kind of show them, like, this is great, your plan is really good. If it is, if it's not, then I'll probably say that as well. But then showing them the value in looking at it as a long-term rental and mid-term rental as well, in case something changes with that short-term rental market, since regulations around it have been changing quite a bit recently.
Yeah, and having someone like yourself that stays up with all of those changes is huge. What is an example of some of those changes that you've noticed?
So different counties and different towns have started not allowing short-term rentals. Like a lot of the things that we see is that they'll make a minimum rental stay of 30 days. So if you bought the property only expecting to use it as a short-term rental and really banking on the cash flow from short-term rental, then as soon as one of those gets passed and you're no longer allowed to do a short-term rental, it can put people in a hard place. So that's kind of why I like to run through, like, okay, well, in case something happens, let's look at what this property would do for you as mid-term rental and what it would do as a long-term rental, to make sure that you won't have to liquidate the property out of a need. Like if you want to, that's fine, but you won't be forced to just from one little regulation change.
That's a huge point that you're bringing up because having a backup is not like giving up and going, oh, that didn't work. Let me try this. It's just let's wring all the value out of plan A that we can. And then if and when we need to move to plan B, that's fine. It's just a matter of realizing that you need to pivot.
Exactly. And especially because it's one of those that, you can be good for years. Like I know up in the Vail Valley, they have tried to stop short-term rentals a couple of times, and a lot of areas it's still usable there. But if, for example, you didn't live up there or didn't know the market up there too often, then you might not know that just because the short-term rental is okay right now, it might not be okay next year.
Yeah, that's huge. And here's the other thing from a psychological standpoint, you need to make this correlation, which is if it's too late and you discover, oops, we should have done this differently, you can't go back and turn time back. You've got to know ahead of time, and you've got to know enough ahead of time to make these certain decisions so that you have time to execute them without feeling like you're under pressure and stressed. So having someone like yourself realizing, hey guys, here's the end game. We need to make sure that these contingencies are in place.
That's exactly right. And, you make a lot better decisions when you're relaxed most of the time than when you're in that real life operating from a necessity standpoint, which is kind of why I take that approach. And that's from my psychology background, where it's just I like to set you up that we're going to avoid major issues, for the long term.
Yep. And then when that happens, you are able to deliver a smooth transaction, and then your projected numbers on that investment property are right in line because you've now banked off of wise planning ahead of time. And then that client is happy because they're like, hey, Michael, you told us what to expect. We hit that road bump like you were thinking, and we moved right through it, around it, up over it, under it. And we've now on the other side, and it worked out really well. So that then I would suspect brings you to the point where people really are able to refer you, because the biggest frustration in a real estate transaction is when those things implode. And if you have a way to avoid them or work your way through them smoothly, then that's huge. So do you find that some of your clients are now being able to refer you to their people that they know because now they experienced a wonderful relationship with you so far?
Oh yeah, constantly. Most of my past clients send me about 3 to 5 referrals per month, and they might not be someone who's ready right now, but even if it's just bringing them to an event I host once a month, which is my Next Gen Investors event in the Rhino office at Weston, Maine, then they're always constantly referring me and helping build up their friends and family's education around real estate as well.
Yeah, and it's sometimes just a mindset shift. It's like an introduction. There's no referral, there's no transaction needed. It's just like, hey, I'd like to introduce you to Michael, or hey, who can you introduce me to come to our next upcoming event where people can learn? Because then they know you're not a high pressure person. You're just teaching and educating.
Exactly. And I've been pleasantly surprised with how many people I can help educate and help get them interested in real estate and really understanding how it all works.
That sounds excellent. Well, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you here. If someone is interested in learning more and also reaching out and connecting with you, what's the best way that they can do that, Michael?
Yeah, the best way for them to reach out to me would be giving me a call at 970-471-9887 or sending me a message on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure to have the link to your Instagram as well as the link to your website in the show notes so people can click right on that. And I just wanted to thank you for coming on today. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Perfect. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.eliterealestateleaders.com.